Welcome to Trauma Recovery Anonymous, the podcast. My name is Richard and I am your host. To all the parents, teachers, and guardians of any child who suffers with anxiety and depression, know this podcast is for you. For all those parents, teachers, and guardians of children who have been diagnosed with mental disorders because of their feelings and emotions, know this podcast is for you. The program, How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day, is a very simple program of 10 to 12 practices that children and their parents, teachers, and guardians can put into play to help them understand that their feelings and emotions are not mental disorders. Rather, they are their God-given instincts, their gut feelings, to use in the face of any danger, real or imaginary. And when they are triggered, they can jump into one of 6 responses: flight, fight, fate, fawn, freeze, or acceptance. Now, freeze and fawn are the 2 most common childhood responses for early childhood. When you were a young child and you couldn't leave the house and you couldn't get away from whatever was going on about you, and you couldn't leave, you might get lost and you couldn't defend yourself, we use freeze and fawn. Freeze is to disassociate, to shut down mentally and emotionally, to sleep, to faint, to hibernate, to isolate, to withdraw, to go into a silent space. And fawn is to people please, play happy families, keep your feelings a secret, keep the abuse a secret, play that game, suffer in silence, suffer fools gladly, and so on. These responses were very healthy for young children, but as you reach adolescence into teenagers, they are no longer healthy. And the more we grow into adults, the less we are to use these 2 responses, almost shelving them completely. The idea is that we teach children to use their responses of flight, fight, faith, and acceptance. So the suggestion for parents, teachers, and guardians is to sit around maybe a kitchen table one evening. If you're a parent, if you're a teacher, it's in the classroom, and have the children list all the different ways they can freeze and then all the different ways they can fawn, and try to get them to understand that these are no longer healthy responses. The next practice is to talk about the response of flight, and all teachers, parents, and guardians are going to share their own experience of how they used flight when they were children and they used flight as adults. And it may be to leave the building, leave the classroom, leave the house, leave the country. You do something to escape what's going on around you. You leave the building. The second response is fight. Not so much about putting up your fists and fighting with somebody, but more about asking for help, seeking a solution, reporting the person, place, or thing, calling a friend, going to your granny or your grandparents or your aunt or uncle and telling them what's going on and ask them to intervene. Tell your favorite teacher. If you're being bullied, scream and shout out loud. Bullies don't like when people draw attention to them, and they'll find some easier target. If we can teach our children all these different responses, so sit around the kitchen table and say, when I was a child, I was bullied, and I would scream and shout like mad, and the teacher would come over and the bullying would stop. Or someone else say, well, I felt really threatened in my school. My teacher wasn't a very confident guy, and he'd used me as a way of getting in with the other students, so I would leave the classroom. I would just walk away. I keep walking away long enough, the headmaster and my parents would confront the teacher and it would stop. And you learn how to use these responses of like flight and fight. And over time, now you make a few mistakes occasionally, but the children learn all the different ways of flighting, all the different ways of fighting. No longer are they afraid of their anxiety and depression. Now they understand their anxiety and depression are healthy coping skills, warning them to keep safe. Understanding that anxiety is the fear of the unknown, the future, even if that's in 5 minutes' time. And depression is regrets or hurts from the past. And neither belong in the present. So children learn to stop going into the past, stop jumping ahead into the future, and just focus on being present, especially if their teachers, their guardians, their parents can show them what they did when they were children or how they cope when they're adults. It helps children to grow into strong, healthy human beings. The other 2 responses are faith and acceptance. Faith really is to stop arguing whether the chicken or the egg came first, accept there is a God. He cares about each and every one of us. He wants us to be happy. But we have to learn to ask him on his terms, not our terms. He's not a go-get-you God that we can feel depression and despair all day long and then ask him to help us and wonder why he isn't helping us. We have to turn all our minds and attention to him and drop the depression and the anxiety and focus squarely on him only, and then he will come into our lives. And there's ways of doing this, and in this book, How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day, I share some of the experiences and some of the practices that you can put into play, and maybe you can do these with the children around the table. Everyone can try dream prayer, or try changing their old prayers to new prayers, and so on. And the final one is acceptance. Understand that when people act out, they're acting out for their own nefarious needs. It's not about you. For instance, my podcast today is about teaching people, especially parents, teachers and guardians, how to help children deal with anxiety. If this is triggering you, this wasn't aimed at you. This was me voicing my solution to anxiety and depression. And if you're triggered, you're choosing to be triggered by what I say, because you're not my target. You're wanting to be a target, and that's something you have to address. Why is it that I need to be a victim? Why do I feel safest when I'm a victim? What is it about myself that stops me from being a normal person and just living life in life's terms? Why do I have to go to being a victim? And I'm not throwing stones from my glass house, because my safe place is to be a victim. 9 out of 10 times I will go to victim every single time. And it's very easy to go to victim. I can go there in a split moment. But it's much harder to be happy, joyous and free. But so I work at it. I remember it's not all about me. I'm no one's victim and no one's target. There is a God, and if I ask him to take care of me, he'll send a host of angels down. I can leave the building. I can ask somebody for help or suggestions or advice. I can go to the police and tell the police, or a social worker. I can send an email. I started learning all these different responses, and in doing this, I become more confident and independent. And that's the aim here, is for teachers, guardians and parents to have a workshop around the kitchen table, at the desk in school, wherever you meet your children. Teach them the different responses to danger, especially flight, fight, faith and acceptance. And maybe as a teacher, you arrange to bring them to the church one day and sit down and just read the Bible or something and discuss what they read in the Bible and just give them an introduction to the concept of God. Maybe have a priest or a pastor come in and talk about prayer and how powerful it is. Understand, our prayers aren't what we learnt in school. They're not what we learnt in church or what we learnt at a mother's knee. Our prayers are our self-talk, the things we say all day long. So if all day long you're saying, I am depressed, I am anxious, no one likes me, I'll never have a girlfriend, I'll never have a boyfriend, these are your prayers. God hears your prayers and answers them tenfold. We are our own worst enemy. We need to teach this to children. Children need to learn to say, up until this morning, I believed I'd never have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or I'd never get a job. But now, listening to Richard or listening to my teacher or my guardian or my parents, I realize I'm my worst enemy. I need to improve myself. Right now, I'm not suitable as a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I'm very codependent and very much like a child. I have to learn to become independent. So I'll go to the library and get books and videos on how to be more independent. I learn from others. I learn from my parents and my siblings. I follow their lead. I'll join some men's group or some boys group and learn how to be more mature around children, around girls and so on. And then suddenly I get to meet a boy and a girl, and they're seeing me as an equal, not someone they have to take care of, not a little child looking for someone to take care of them, but someone who's equal. And they're attracted to meeting someone who's equal, and suddenly I get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And now I'm regretting having a boyfriend or girlfriend, so I preferred my own space. You'll learn these things from your parents, your teachers and your guardians primarily. Don't be afraid to allow them to be a part of your life. And as parents, teachers and guardians, introduce your children to the idea that it's okay to ask for help. Let them know that you're there to help them. Teachers trained and qualified become teachers because they want to work with children. They wanted to help children to become giants. Parents have children because they see them as the future of their family, of their race, of the human race. They want them to succeed, and they want you to have the greatest life. So teachers, parents and guardians, you're the first line of defense. Teach your children that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to be fearful, but to take action. Ask for help, leave the building, ask God for help to send a host of angels. No, it's not all about you. These are wonderful workshop moments you can have in the kitchen of your house or in the sitting room, you and your children sitting around the table, sharing your experiences first and then getting them for their experiences, and get them to take a notebook and write down all the different responses and get them to try it. Maybe you decide, okay, Mum says we used to hide under the bed. Okay, let's everyone run upstairs and hide under the bed for 5 minutes. Then come back down and kind of go, how is that? And someone says, I love that. And they put that in as one of the responses. And the other says, no, I didn't fancy that. And that. So I used to hide in the closet, but I also used to hide up a tree in the back garden. And there's a perfect tree outside. And you all go out, you all climb up the tree with your mum and dad. And you stay in the tree for 10 minutes. You come out and you say, how is that? And you kind of go, that was exciting and thrilling and whatever. And I scraped my leg and it was really cool climbing up a tree. And I haven't climbed trees before. And suddenly you have another response. And so on. You try different responses. Let's go to the gym and do a workout in the gym. Let's go for a run or a cycle or a swim. And you all go for a run, cycle, swim. It takes your mind off what's going on. And you go, that was good. And you learn from. The idea is our children are meant to learn from us, the adults, how to deal in a better way with our anxiety and our depression and what's causing it. Depression is caused from something in the past. Be ready to listen to your children talk about something that happened in the past. Let them know it's safe to talk about that. And then the anxiety, the unknown future. Let them know they're only children, they've got a whole life ahead of them, and they're going to meet people and whatever, and in a way that's not condescending or whatever, that it's okay to have these fears, but they're not real, and don't get caught up in fears about the future, because you can start doing things today to make that better. It's up to us, parents and teachers and guardians, the first line of defence. No point in leaving it to a mental health professional to diagnose your child, because they'll be diagnosed with a mental disorder, put on medication, and any chance they had of a normal life is gone. We are the first line of defence. Introduce your children to the concept that they are not broken, they are not victims, it's not all about them, and they can ask for help. And show them how you asked for help, show them how you took action, and everything will change. When they get to practice what their mammy and daddy did, or their uncle did, or their aunt, or their grandparent, or their teacher did, or their favourite teacher, or their guardian, and they handle that situation, they'll feel stronger and more independent for it. This is the talk I'm having with you today. Please take the chance to teach your children how to flight, fight, faith and acceptance. It will do you the world of good to see your children be restored to sanity. Thank you.